In lesson 2, one of the concepts we learn about is being able to compute salary per pay period. Now, there are many different ways we can compute pay period because there are many different ways to set a pay period. So a pay period is just describing the amount of time for which we are calculating your paycheck. For example, some people might be paid weekly, so their employer is determining based on their wage, maybe it's an hourly wage, how many hours they worked that week, and they get paid every week based on those hours. This would result in receiving 52 paychecks a year, but there are many other ways that an employer might tally up your paycheck. So for example, they might pay you twice a month, which is semi-monthly, and this is an important one, semi-monthly paychecks, meaning that you're paid 24 times a year, you're paid twice a month. Some people may be paid quarterly, meaning 4 times a year. Bi-weekly is another really important one, and this is the other pay period that I'm going to highlight in this video. So bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. This is probably the most standard pay period that most working adults have from their employer. Bi-weekly, so 26 pay periods being paid every 2 weeks. Annually, we'd be paying once a year. Monthly, of course, there'd be 12 times a year because there are 12 months in a year. Bi-monthly would be every 2 months. I want to focus on bi-weekly and semi-monthly because I see students mixing these two up quite a bit. So again, I want it to be very clear that semi-monthly means twice a month. Semi-monthly means twice a month. Semi-monthly, twice a month. So there are 12 months in a year. We're paying twice a month, and that's how we're getting those 24 pay periods, 24 paychecks a year. Bi-weekly, bi is telling us like every two of these things. Just like bi-monthly means every 2 months, bi-weekly means every 2 weeks. So there are 52 weeks in a year. We're getting paid every other week, so dividing by 2 I get 26. That's how we know that there are 26 pay periods for a bi-weekly pay schedule. Now I want to go over 3 brief examples on just practicing determining between semi-monthly and bi-weekly again, because these are the two that I see mixed up most frequently in this lesson. So for example, let's say that Crystal gets paid semi-monthly and her annual salary is $53,000, and we want to find her semi-monthly salary. Okay, so to find her semi-monthly salary, we'll take her annual salary and we'll just divide it by the number of pay periods she'll have in a year, or in other words, the number of semi-months in a year. Remember that semi-monthly means twice a month. So plugging this in, if she gets paid semi-monthly, we'll divide that annual salary by 24. And again, remember that her annual salary was described to us in the prompt. They told us it was $53,000. So we plug in $53,000 for annual salary. So taking $53,000 and dividing by 24, we find that her semi-monthly salary is $2,208.33. So the computation here is not very complex, right? But again, a common mistake I see is students plugging in the wrong number for the denominator. So you can keep that chart from the last slide handy. Just use it for reference to make sure that you're plugging in the correct number of pay periods based on the pay schedule that they specify. Let's look at another example, this time with bi-weekly pay periods. So say Calvin gets paid bi-weekly and his annual salary is $53,000. And we want to know what is his bi-weekly salary. So just like before, in order to set this up, we're going to take annual salary, which they've told us is $53,000. We'll plug in annual salary as our numerator. And then for our denominator, we need to plug in bi-weeks in a year, or in other words, the number of pay periods in a year. So since this is bi-weekly, we know that means every other week. So there are 26 of these pay periods per year. So we'll take that annual salary of $53,000, divide by 26, and Calvin's bi-weekly salary is $2,038.46. Now I want to look at one more example. This time we'll look at the same person, and we'll calculate her biweekly and then her semi-monthly salary. So I want you to realize that either way, when we say Francesca's annual salary is $77,000, this is the total amount of money she's getting. No matter what kind of pay period we do, the sum of money that she's getting paid is always going to be $77,000. These different pay schedules are just different ways of dividing that money, but no matter what, whether she gets it in one big chunk or 24 chunks or 3 chunks or whatever, it's going to add up to $77,000 in the end. So let's start with looking at her biweekly salary. Remember that biweekly means every 2 weeks. So we know that that means that we're going to take that annual salary of $77,000 and divide it by 26 because it's a biweekly schedule. So 77,000 divided by 26, we find her biweekly salary is $2,961.54. Now let's compare that to semi-months. So her semi-monthly salary, when she gets paid twice a month, we will divide by 24. So again, using that same annual salary, but this time computing for semi-monthly salary, we'll divide by 24. She gets $3,208.33. So again, the grand total for both of these is going to be $77,000. It's just a matter of whether we are splitting it into 26 paychecks or 24. Now again, most of the people that I know, most employers will pay like this with a bi-weekly salary. So you end up having 2 months out of the year where you end up with 3 paychecks in that month instead of 2. But again, you're being paid the same total no matter what. So the main thing that I want you to take away from this video is just remembering the difference between bi-weekly and semi-monthly, and that they are not the same thing. Keep that chart of pay schedules handy when you work on Lesson 2 workbooks, checkpoints, and other assignments.